All right. Kia ora koutou. It's nice to see all of you lovely people here on our first book club of 2026. I can't believe it. I can't even believe 2026 is here already. But we're really excited to be here with you all talking about plays. I'll get each person to introduce themselves. So kia ora, ko Caitlin Funk toku ingoa. My name's Caitlin Funk. I teach here in well, here, I don't know where you are, but in Tamaki Makoto. And I am loving the variety of the plays we got to talk about tonight. So I'll let Melanie introduce herself.
Kia ora, ko Melanie Van Ansem toku ingoa. I teach at Glendowie College in Tamaki Makaurau. Do you want me to introduce my play as well?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
And I read My Own Darling by
Cool.
Grace Iwashita-Taylor.
Nice. Bex?
Sorry, there is a child knocking at my door. I'm busy. Talk to Dad. Sorry, team.
So real.
Kia ora, ko Bex Roberts, toku ingoa, no o Tahi aho. I teach at at Papanui High School, co-ed, 1,500 kids.
And Chris?
Kia ora koutou, ko Chris Rayward toku ingoa. I'm also here in Ototahi, Christchurch, but just freshly back from Auckland, which was great to, it's a new scene. And I've been teaching English for a very long time and really looking forward to talking about plays tonight because it's been a long time since I have taught plays at junior level.
Mm.
And I've been, looking forward to talking about it.
Yeah. Do you want to start us off, Chris?
No, okay. Righty. Well, this is a really funky, colourful, exciting cover. So this is a play that's actually been around for quite some time. New Zealand by Dave Armstrong, who originally comes from Wellington. He's a comedian, playwright, creative from Wellington. I think he's also lived in Auckland. And, of course, Oscar Kitely has co-written this. And as young men, they got together in Wellington on another script writing project. And they were talking about their childhoods and how multicultural their neighbourhoods were and how much they really enjoyed that aspect of growing up with being exposed to all these different cultures and the friendships that developed out of those cultures, but also some of the challenges. So the story, the play is set in 1970s New Zealand in Auckland. And it starts off, actually, it's a really lovely structure of a play where it starts when they're in their early 30s and the boys are now young men and they've drifted apart and their lives have gone really quite different ways. And there's immediate tension in that opening scene. So it's a great hook because, clearly they were best mates and they meet in a TAB. They both come to lay some bets, but one of them, Oni, who's a Pacific Islander, he doesn't want to have anything to do with Peter, who used to be his mate. So Peter's Pakeha, a Palangi,
Palangi, I think.
Palangi, and Oni clearly doesn't want to talk to him, but we don't know why. And then the play, there's a flashback to when they're 6-year-olds and they're in the same primary school class together and they immediately connect. They've got the same sort of sense of humour. And it's most of the play is a comedy. There's some very funny lines, very clever, very quick. And one of the appeals of this play, and I'd love to see it on stage because it was first put on stage in like 2004. So it's been around for a while. Have any of you guys read it or seen it performed?
No, I heard lots about it, but never actually.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've got I even say there were about 12 copies that have been sitting in our bookshelves, and no one's touched them. And I wish I'd come across this sooner because I can see it would be a lot of fun to teach. So it's very accessible. So at first, there's one of the reasons why it's funny is because the original are just two actors playing all the parts. So there, think about Ioni's families. There's as well as his own family. There's his aunties, his uncles. The whole extended family, and there's that real, sense of that vibrancy of having lots of people in your home, etc. Whereas Peter, it sounds like he's his only child. He's just got mum, dad, and they're definitely kind of middle class, but they're both, they're neighbours. They're living on the same street. But as the play goes along, there's a number of instances of just blatant racism, and it begins with their primary school teacher, who refuses to even attempt to say Ioni's name and says, like, your name is Ian now. But it's quite, even though it's a horrible moment, Peter sort of pipes up and says, well, that's not even a transliteration of his name. It's John. And the teacher responds by saying, that's not a word. The word's translation. So it's even though it's a horrible moment, it's, there's that comedic element. But then Peter makes the comment, like, it's only when we're walking down the street together that the cops pull up and ask, what are you boys up to? Why have you got that bag of lollies? Oscar Kitely actually talks about the moments in this story where the cops pull up the boys is actually based on his own experience growing up as a young Samoan kid, where to the point where he was pulled up so often that he made a card at school and said, my name is, and he gave his full name, I live at, and gave his full address. I have not been involved in any burglaries. I am on my way home. And he laminated it. So this, while it is a kind of a funny moment in the story, it's like, this actually happened. And then you get nearer to the end of the story, and so you skip forward to high school, and they're beginning to grow apart. He's been put in the bottom band class, and it's nearly all Pacifica boys, and the subjects that are available to them are quite different to Peter, and the opportunities and the class trips and all the rest of it. And then so by the time they're young men, their paths are quite different, and it becomes definitely a more serious story. And then at the end of the play, we come back to the TAB, and he's still trying to push Peter away, but Peter persists, and they finally kind of make that connection that they always had. This is a really cool play. And I would probably teach it to year 10 or 11. And something else I really like about it is, who's this by? This is a teaching edition. So there's Nucilla from the beginning. So how the play came about, how the two writers got together, the genesis of the different stages of actually writing, and then finally staging the play. And then there's a bunch of teaching notes at the end. So super useful addition.
Cool. That's awesome.
Oh, Nelson Sengage.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what you guys have been reading. But yeah.
Bex, do you want to tell us?
Sure. I'll be you, Caitlin. And can you see that? I don't know if you can because of my background blurring out. But it's called Daughters of Heaven. And it was written in 1991, and it's a dramatization of the Parker Hume murder, which Chris will be going, oh yeah, because she's from Otahi. And it's by, I think it's Michelanne Forster. I'm sorry, it's not very easy to see with the blurring. There we go.
Oh yeah.
And so it was first written for the Court Theatre in Christchurch. And It's got a really good forward and a really good introduction, so I've kind of underlined some bits to read to you guys. But it's based on a murder that happened in Christchurch in the 50s, quite a famous one, where, spoiler alert, 2 girls bet one of the girls' mothers to death with a brick in a stocking up the top of Victoria Park in Christchurch. And I asked some of my year 12s how many knew about this murder, and one did. So it's something that I'm very well aware of, because a famous movie called Heavenly Creatures came out, which is the movie version, and this is the play version. And it had Melanie Lynch and who played Juliet?
Kate Winslet.
Kate Winslet, she did. And that came out when I was a teenager. So when you sent us the list of plays, this resonated with me, and I thought, oh, I'll give it a go. So it says few people alive and residing in Christchurch in 1954 have difficulty in remembering the circumstances of hearing that a woman called Reaper had been murdered in Victoria Park. So it talks about how that was a change for the loss of provincial innocence in Christchurch. And it is part of the law of the city, but definitely not part of the law for our rangatahi now. I think a lot of time has passed. And, they talk about how it's an engrossing and bizarre story, and that's really true. So after 40 years, the author decided that it was time to do something, and so this play was published in 1992, but it was put on at the Court Theatre in 1991, and a lot of people, when she started interviewing people to write the play, told her it was in bad taste and it should stay in Christchurch's past, and quote, the Parker Hume case was still a touchy subject. And she used 2 main sources for the play. So the public record of the trial, and then interviews with survivors. And there were a number of people who just flat out refused to talk to her. She chose not to contact the woman. And yeah, they kind of use the legal facts as the simple narrative. And then the playwright adds in Bridget, who's sort of an outside observer. And I sort of picture her standing up to the side, making commentary. And it says, it gathered together opinions and attitudes and facts manifested in the city at the time. It showed the small town prejudices of Christchurch in 1954, anti-intellectualism, hypocritical disapproval of sexual misconduct, religious bigotry, and strange survivals of folk superstitions, such as those surrounding tuberculosis. The thing that I think students will find hard is it's not always presented in a strict chronological order. You jump from the trial at the start to scenes that happen way before the trial. But I kind of, when you read it, you get why they've done it. I also love the introduction, because it actually talks to students who are writers, and it talks about how, the author says the play went through a number of rewrites. In the first draft, the play seemed to be about the nature of insanity, because they, at the court case, they were talking about whether the girls were insane or guilty by reason of insanity, and that was a big part of the court case. The next draft, it seemed to be about being undone by love. And then she says, evil poked its ugly head and added to the babble as well. With each draft, I had more and more difficulty keeping the play tidy. The characters began taking on a life of their own and pushed their way out of the page to deliver ultimations to me. And she talks about how it was kind of like a crystal in the end. It had so many different sides to it. And I think that's quite a metaphor for what you end up during the writing process. Like, you go through iterations and you end up with this multifaceted, shiny crystal. And she said, it's the story of Christchurch in 1954, restrained and nice, with implicit British attitudes about class and gender suddenly being confronted with evil. On the outskirts of the city's level lawns and daffodil gardens, two girls picnic with the devil because they pretend they're taking the mother to a picnic up the hill, and then they bash her with a brick and a stocking. So yeah, it's a really beautifully written play. You feel it coming off the page. You can picture how it would look. The cast list is very female heavy, like two female protagonists. The men are sort of just babbling objects in the background a lot of the time, in terms of the fathers, they're not full and beautiful characters like the girls are, and even both the mothers are brought to life a lot more, and so it lends itself to girls rather than boys. For me, it's fascinating in Otahi because it's real, and I love the narration of Bridget and how that was brought to life. I'm just reading my notes. But for me, I don't think I would teach it with anything apart from seniors, and it would need to be an opt-in thing, because in a co-ed school, our biggest thing at senior English is to keep our boys and to keep them going and really into things. And I think that because of the story, it doesn't sit well in terms of raising the mana of boys within this text. But yeah, I think in Otahi it definitely has a place, and I can see some of my students being really enthralled with the reality of it. Like they can visit Victoria Park, they can visit Juliet's dad was the Chancellor of the university, or high up in the University of Canterbury, and so you can visit the house that she lived in. It's still there. So yeah, it is an interesting story. And it definitely, I can see students being really into it. It's a senior play, like to understand kind of the weird relationship the girls have and not just go, oh, they were lesbians, and, stick at that surface. I think there's quite a lot to it.
Yeah, cool. That sounds
long enough. Sorry.
That sounds really interesting. Yeah, and it's interesting that for both of you, your plays have elements, or in your case, Bex, very strong, of real life.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah.
Melanie, do you want to tell us about yours?
Yeah, sure. So mine was My Own Darling, by Grace Iwashita-Taylor, who is, I think, has her fingers in a lot of pies, but definitely as a poet. As well as a playwright. And this is actually written as poetry in play form, which is fascinating and amazing. And it makes it very easy to read. It's not very thick. It's very thin. It's very quick to read, which makes it very accessible. But the language is exceptionally clever. You have to work at some parts, and then some parts are really obvious. But it's a joy to read in terms of the way that she strings words together and expresses her ideas. So I'm just going to read the blurb because I think that's really helpful in this case. It says, poetry and theatre collide in this urban love-hate letter to Tamaki Makaurau. Tuila, an Afakazi poet and single mum, journeys through social landscapes of the city, unpacking and celebrating the intensely personal stories of those around her. Through meeting a girl in blood-red jeans, a neighborhood mama, and a brown-skinned tattoo-less brother, her life is made visible. She riffs on the intimate and the epic, challenging preconceptions of Pacific stereotypes with searing poetry, humor, and alofa. So it's a 5-character play, and I think it's performed with 3 actors. It was commissioned by the Auckland Theatre Company and first performed in 2015, so quite recent. Feels recent, maybe not for our students.
Where some of them were just born.
Oh, well. And I think it's been performed a few times since then. On YouTube, there's sort of a clip of her being interviewed, and it looks like the set is really simplistic, sort of boxes piled on top of each other, and sort of the color outline just really straightforward. And it's sort of more about the characters and who they are. So you have Tuila, who's, I guess, the main character. There's the man from the Maunga, who she meets on Mount Eden. He has his motorbike that he's customized with speakers from the Ringuera an organic collection. There's the lady from next door, who is the Samoan auntie, who's, you know, all about telling the truth. There's this girl, Grit Girl, who is this, this character that Tuila sees sort of walking through the city, and has her own struggles that she's dealing with, but, you know, is, you know, even in her poverty is generous, and has to sort of, you know, display resilience. And then there's the patron, and the patron is actually the clearly not Pacifica host of a Pacifica poetry night in Ponsonby. And you can see why it's called the patron. And I think the idea is that Tuila is writing a poem for this night as a Afikazi woman, and trying to, like, sort of explore her own identity as well. But yeah, it's amazing. You start off in sort of talking about Auckland and just the different, we go through different places that are so familiar to me, obviously, as someone who lives in this area. But this idea of the negatives and the positives, and kind of, but without judgment as well, and just sort of how different parts of the city are kind of seen in different lights by different people. So for instance, she says, just to give you a taste of the language, she says, Mount Eden Road flexes out her arms, coffee lovers and fitness runners tickling her, and there, perched at her collarbone, Maungafo, calling lost lovers in their full broken bloom. Driving up her spine, I cast a look out. The city sits tall, scraping purple skies. This is where I come, to throw lamenting stars into the void, flick ash into dead yesterdays and hopeless tomorrows. So you can see the language is absolutely stunning. And there's also the man from the Maunga has a whole lot of facts at his fingertips, and he throws in various things. You know, did you know the most broken into car in Auckland is the Subaru Legacy? As well as sort of the formation of the Waitakere Ranges and all sorts of things. There's a really amazing depiction of K Road and who Tuila sees on K Road. And sort of the end is sort of Tuila speaking a poem about my love and what that means, and all the different ways my love is shown, and, you know, the different loves that Auckland has, I guess, as well. So I think really, really great for independent reading as well, because it's so brief, so easy to read. I think I probably read it in about an hour, maybe a bit less. Students could easily tackle it and get meaning from it. There's definitely, even though the language can be challenging in places, like, you would definitely get an understanding. Particularly would be really great for something like Connections, alongside how to loiter in a turf war. I could just see that working brilliantly. I'm planning to recommend it to some students for reading responses. Nice. Probably more of a short, I don't know that we can justify this as being an extended text, but still, like, a really, really interesting thing that they could draw on. And you could use extracts definitely to talk about sort of the different ways we describe things, or creative writing prompts. I think probably 11 to 13, I think some of the content's a little bit, would be hard to unpack beyond a very surface, simplistic level at 9 and 10. You know, you've got issues of poverty and single parents, and I mean, obviously that definitely, not to say that, you know, 9 and 10s don't experience that, but you know, in a level of in an adult, discussed in an adult way. But really, really great. And also, I just love that this these little play covers are being produced by Creative New Zealand for Pacifica Aotearoa plays under the Pacific Arts Strategy. And
Nice.
it's just really great. It doesn't have all the lovely extra details like your editions have, Bex and Chris, but definitely is makes it like a really appealing thing that you could imagine just having a sort of half a set or something in the workroom that you could hand out to students who are showing an interest. I imagine drama departments would love it too.
How cool though, how small they are. Like this probably took me max a couple of hours. And it makes it really accessible. And then if you unpack that in a class and you have students reading parts, you know, you can get through it quite quickly, I think. And so, and that's a whole story wrapped up in this and so many different things to unpack. So, you know, this one's not actually that thick in the scheme of things. I think it's 87 pages.
Yeah.
Chris,
how long is yours?
Yeah, no, again, it was a quick read. Like again, it's slim, but it was really enjoyable. You know, once I started reading, I wanted to know what happened to these guys.
Yeah,
and it would work really well. There's like multiple parts, even though there's two actors on the stage. When you're actually reading this, it's got multiple characters, so you got all four parents come in, their friends, the little sister Sulu, who's always in trouble, you've got the cop, you've got the teacher. That's cool.
Yeah, that is really cool. I love that all of yours are very much set here in Aotearoa. Mine is very different. So this is not my play. This is what my play is based off of. So this is good old Alice in Wonderland. This is my favorite version of the book I have. And I read a play called Alice's Revenge. This was such a fun play. So Claire Hiria Dunning wrote this play, published it in 2018. There are 35 parts in this play. It is a perfect year 9 or 10 play. What you are doing is you are in the two main characters are the detective and the femme fatale, who are speaking to each other because the detective's like, girl, let me tell you what has happened. He's like, there are so many Alices, and all these Alices, I think they keep murdering each other. They all keep dying. I don't understand. And so it just is all these different characters who, as they are preparing to put on this play, and as they're going through rehearsals, all these Alices die in like the most obscure way. And the detective keeps being like, I don't understand. And he's like, I know I probably should shut this down, but like, I really need to figure out who's doing it. And so he just like keeps letting it happen. They're like the other characters, I think there's 7 or 8 Alices. You have all of the main characters from Alice in Wonderland. You have a Cheshire Cat, you have the Queen of Hearts, you have a bunch of the playing cards, you have the White Rabbit, you have the Mad Hatter and the Dormouse, and you just have all of these like classic characters that you're used to seeing. You have Tweedledee and Tweedledum, but then you also have like the props manager and the costume designer and all of these other people who are a part of what makes a play happen show up on the stage as characters. So I think it's while it might not be like this is a play that you would write an essay about necessarily, I think it would just be such a fun way to get students to engage with theater, to understand the joy and the beauty of theater. And also a way, especially if you were to do something like kind of at the end of term 1 or midway through term 1, to try to get that class together and cohesive and gelled once they know each other a bit and aren't so like, do I know these people? Are they gonna like me? You know, once that's a bit out of the way and they can be a bit silly with each other, it is like honestly such a funny. I was laughing several times. And I can just imagine how much fun the kids would have with it. Because there are 35 parts, when your class, God, please, I hope that no one listening to this has 35 students in their class by themselves. But, you know, to each their own. You can double up on quite a few because because some of the characters from Alice in Wonderland only show up for certain moments, they can be doubled up with some of the other characters in the play, which is kind of cool. It's only 25 pages. It is like just a bunch of pieces of paper together, so it's not really helpful to visualize it. But yeah, I had so much fun with it, and I could totally imagine a year 9 or a 10 class just eating this up and laughing and being silly, but also like really starting to see, like, there are also moments in the play where the stage directions are really important. So if this was this would be a really great first play for students to engage with outside of drama, to understand, like, how do you develop characters, why do stage directions exist, what are we supposed to do with them in an English classroom when we're not putting on the play, what do they reveal to us about the mindset of the director, the mindset of the writer, the playwright in this case, what is allowed to come to chance, what's not allowed to come to chance. When I compare it to something like A Raisin in the Sun, where Lorraine Hansberry has written like almost as much stage direction as she has actual content of her play, you can see why some people have made directorial choices, or saying, I don't care who the director is, this is what I want to happen. I think that's kind of cool. Yeah. It's a 1-act play, where it's just broken down into a whole bunch of scenes. I think there are 9 or 10 scenes, maybe 11. There are 10 scenes. And yeah, I just thought it was really fun. So it'd be a good way to kind of like chunk up the lesson, a couple of lessons together, but also to talk about like the power of literature and how it crosses over time. So to go from, this quite interesting but dense story that we don't really read to our kids in the same way that maybe it was, before, how we keep literature alive. And, especially with something like Alice in Wonderland, where there are so many iterations and versions and, adaptations, to have someone here in Aotearoa take it and make it their own. I thought it was great. Yeah, definitely would recommend Alice's Revenge. I can't. There you go. I'm having a Bex moment.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No. There you go. Yay, there it is. Yeah. Okay, well, it sounds like all of us had some really good plays, and nice that we had some good variety, all the way from silly year 9, 10, but so fun, to like pretty intense girls killing an adult. But yeah, I think it's awesome. It just goes to show, like, plays can do some really cool stuff in your class if you got time for them, and if you can find one that's going to fit with the kids in front of you. Yeah. Even though I said 9 or 10, there is some pretty grisly murder descriptions. So, I would say spend the $10, buy a copy, see what you think, and then buy a class set. Yeah. But I had a lot of fun. I laughed a lot. But yeah, awesome. Well, thanks for your time tonight, everyone. I really appreciate you. I appreciate the korero as usual. And I can't wait to see what we talk about next. We're going to talk about novels. So more details to come. All right.
Cool.
Akite.
Kia ora. Thanks, Kaylin.
Okay.
All right. I stopped it. I stopped the recording.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone. I appreciate you.
No,